heroes, there are superheroes, and then there's the Disenfranchised podcast. What are we? Well, we're that podcast all about those franchises of one, those films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film. I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy, and joining me, as always, our resident asshole, it's Tucker. Hey, Tucker.
Hi, Stephen. How's it going?
Not too shabby, my friend. How are you?
I don't know, but I think, look, Brett's going to have to step up and start being in more episodes because I'm going to steal his intro. I'm going to steal it.
Do it. Do it now.
All I want to do every time you say hello, I just want to be like, hello, Stephen.
He doesn't go that high with it, though.
I know. I'd have to make it my own. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it. It'd be more like an homage than a ripoff. You know what I mean?
Then let's use the next few episodes to workshop it. Let's let August be the month that you workshop that. I like this.
I like that. And then you know what? When Brett comes back full time, he can have it back. But until then, shit's mine.
There it is. And speaking of Brett, he is, for all we know, he's been causing a lot of ruckus out in LA these days, flying into buildings, creating all sorts of property damage, right? Yeah. It's been on the news. And our next guest knows all about it because he is a resident of LA. From the Specter Cinema Club, from the Pod and the Pendulum. It's Big Daddy Disco himself, Mr. DeVaughn Taylor. DeVaughn, welcome to Disenfranchised.
Hello. I am so happy to be here because I was a little salty. I've been binging lately. And then I go, wow, all the Pod and Pendulum co-hosts have been on Disenfranchised. Huh. So that's why I had to insert myself. I had to fly in without, crash landing onto your podcast.
And look, this has been a long time coming, and I take full responsibility for how long it's been because you were actually supposed to be on November 22. I had you on the schedule, and then I had some health problems and had to scrap all the guests for the end of the year. So that's all on me, and I just have been dragging my feet trying to reconcile getting everyone back. So you're here. We're thrilled to have you.
Oh, I am here.
Oh, you are making your presence well and truly known.
And I picked a movie that wasn't my original choice, so that way I have to come back because I got to make you guys do Push at some point. We're going to do
happen. Push is absolutely going to happen, and I'm not considering anyone else for that episode. You're on. Whenever it happens. We can schedule it at the end of this record if you'd like.
There we go. Teasers, breadcrumbs for y'all.
That's right. I mean, that's usually what we do with Ari. Ari's like, oh, I'm going to come on for these episodes. And we're like, all right, we'll schedule them after. And then we'll just write them all down. So, I mean, that's absolutely thrilled to have you. Again, we're completing our set of Pod and Pendulum co-hosts now. DeVaughn, welcome. You've picked a movie that we honestly were going to cover. It was on our schedule and life found a way, as life tends to do. And you were like, hey, you need a guest. And I said, hell fucking yeah, we need a guest. And so here you are, DeVaughn, to talk about what movie did you select this time?
We are talking about the alternative superhero movie from 2008, Black Superman Who's an Asshole. It is Hancock.
It is Hancock from 2008, directed by Peter Berg and written by Vince Gilligan. Yes, that Vince Gilligan and Vi Vincent Ngo, and starring Will Smith, Charlize Theron, Jason Bateman, Jay Head, Eddie Marsan, Johnny Galecki, Thomas Lennon, Mike Epps, Akiva Goldsman, Michael Mann, Nancy Grace has a cameo.
Produced by Michael Mann as well.
Yeah, right. I saw that and I was like, random, but all right.
He was originally attached when the first director attached to this project was Michael Mann.
That's true.
So, which I find really, and that would have been such a different movie. That would have been such an insanely different movie.
I don't know. The first time I saw this, Greg Kinnear was in the Jason Bateman role. So whatever timeline I was in the first time I saw it. Yeah. So I wonder who directed it that time around.
A role similar to, Greg Kinnear does tend to play a cuck from time to time. And that's 100% what Jason Bateman's doing here.
I don't want to say that they are interchangeable, but they do tend to play similar types of roles.
I mean, Greg Kinnear has a little too much snark for this Jason Bateman role. Because Greg Kinnear, he's a nice guy, he's a good guy, but he has a little snark to him, and this character could not have an ounce of snark. Ray has to be very, so I think Jason Bateman Greg Kinnear, love him, but I don't know if he would have been right here.
Bateman usually has some snark on him too. Like this is
early
snark.
Bateman.
This
is early Bateman.
Yeah, this is like Bateman resurgent, like first couple seasons of Arrested Development. Coming,
yeah, because he'd been around since he was on like Growing Pains or whatever, right?
Silver Spoons. His sister was Growing Pains. Yeah,
there you go.
He was Silver Spoons. He and baby Alfonso Ribeiro were on Silver Spoons together. But yeah, he like a family with child actors because his sister Justine was in. No, it was Family Ties was the one she was in. That's the one. The show that gave us Alex P. Keaton, aka Michael J. Fox.
Oh, Steven, come on, give us just a couple bars. What do we do, baby?
Without us, I bet I loved you for 1,000 years. Yeah. Okay, there it is.
Yeah. I needed just a taste. Thank you, Steve.
My social contract is complete. I've done my duty.
You did the thing.
So DeVaughn, what is it? What is it about Hancock that made you step up and say that one? Like you knew we were covering Will Smith. Mm-hmm. We'd recorded, I think, we'd only recorded, I think, one episode when you were like, "Hey, you need someone for Hancock." Like, what was it about Hancock? What's your relationship with this movie? What's your relationship with the Fresh Prince himself? Like, lay a little bit of your history on us.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was interesting because, yes, I was listening to, of course, the Wild Wild West episode, just pining to be on that because I love that movie so fucking much. So I was like, all right, I was like, what other Will Smith movies might they cover? And I was like, they might do Hancock. Because I love alternative superhero movies. And it was interesting, watching this one now because, I mean, I hadn't watched it in like 12 years. And I'm not gonna come on this podcast and be like, oh, Hancock's actually an underrated masterpiece. It is not. However, in our current era and state of superhero movies, I found this very refreshing, like surprisingly so. I thought it wasn't gonna hold up. I thought it was gonna be like cringy and cornier than I remembered. And there's still some of that there. But like it's an actual movie. This is not a comic book on your screen, which there's a place for that, but this is a movie like about people that want, that just so happen to have superpowers. And so that was like kind of refreshing. And then of course, like kind of the whole like, oh, what if Superman was a dick? Is like, it's a funny premise. They are going to get a lot of mileage out of the asshole superhero thing. I kept track. By my count, they said asshole 27 times. I'm in the whole movie, but most of it's actually in the first half. There's an interesting thing in the second half. They stop saying it. In the first half, they say it a shit ton. So it was very intentional.
A lot of things are different from the first half to the second half of this movie.
For sure.
A lot of things.
Yeah, I'll say we'll get to that because I don't think it's as stark of a difference as people kind of give it, but. And I mean, I've always been a big Will Smith fan. I mean, Men in Black is one of my all-time favorite movies. I remember, watching him punch an alien in the face in Independence Day while I was a kid and being like, wow, this is one of the coolest guys to ever exist. And then, of course, like I said, like Wild Wild West came out. I was 6 at the time when I saw it. So it was like, but I still love it to this day. Me and my friends will burst out into quoting Wild Wild West for like 20 minutes sometimes. It's obnoxious. But yeah, I love Big Willie. Like I've always loved him. It's always been fascinating kind of growing up and watching his career evolve because by the time I was like actually paying attention to who he was in movies, like this was, late 90s, early 2000s and like, late 90s is when he like really burst onto the scene, So like watching his 2000s evolution throughout my life as I've been growing up has always been very fascinating to me.
What's your relationship with him now?
I mean, I still love Will Smith. He's not quite on the Rock levels of this persona and kind of dialing in all the same movies and things like that. He's not quite there. He has a smidge of that, but he does still have his humanity. Like on Instagram, he just loves posting random videos that he finds inspiring or he finds funny and like, gives somebody a social media bump just because he feels like it. So like he does stuff like that. He was what was the last movie he did where he was like showing up to the movies and like watching it with people? Like that was really fun. So like, I still love Will Smith. I mean the whole slap thing, like that people like kind of that all of a sudden change people's views on Will Smith is just hilarious to me. It's stupid. But
finally, someone agrees with me. Finally,
I mean,
who hasn't smacked somebody? I've smacked people,
right? Again,
do I regret it? Yes, but I've grown as a human being, and I'm better now, and I'm sure he has too. That's just the kind of guy Will is.
If anything, that slap reminded us that he is a person. He is not just Will Smith, the celebrity,
Absolutely.
the movie star. Like, if anything, that moment reminded people, like, hey, that is a human being. That is just a regular guy that got pissed off that somebody was made a joke about his wife. Whatever. He hasn't made anything that's really done it for me in a minute. That is kind of the disappointing with Will Smith. I didn't see King Richard, but like the last thing that I like remember him like really bringing something to was Focus with Margot Robbie.
Oh, okay.
So
I
would say that was
one.
I would say that was like the last movie that I was like, okay, he's he's locked in. He's trying to do something. So current Will Smith, I mean, I'm not gonna give up on the guy because he's still a fucking movie star. He's still got the charisma. So it'll, something will come around back to where that like reminds us of like, peak late 90s, early 2000s Will Smith.
Have you seen those new Bad Boys movies? Because Tucker loves those new Bad Boys movies.
Yeah, duh. That's what I was talking about. He was going and seeing Bad Boys 4 with people in the theaters and like talking to them afterwards. I've only seen 1 and 2. I haven't seen 3 and 4. I kind of fell off. They don't do it for me. Like I don't care for Bad Boys or like Lethal Weapon or like those don't do it for me.
That's fair.
Not a cop guy.
Nah, not really. Who is in 2024?
Ooh, I mean, touche.
Can I tell you guys a tiny personal story that doesn't really have much to do with this, but it's really funny. I don't want to share it with somebody really quick.
Might as well.
So I work where I work. I have another coworker, and we either work opposing shifts or together. Mm-hmm. And so we're like BFF, the BFs of the Fs. And so we always, whenever like something really crazy goes on at the campground, I like start spinning around in circles and I pretend to answer my phone and I say, shit just got real. And so we always do like Bad Boys jokes. And so I'm always like, we camp host together, we die together. Bad Boys for life. And last night he called in and it was real busy. So it was just me and like 700 people in my fucking backyard. And so, like, as I went to do my quiet hours check at 10 p.m., I was like, I can't post alone. I die alone. Bad boy for life.
Yeah, bad boy. You were just a full bad boy.
One singular bad boy. Yes.
The baddest of boys.
Just the worst boy.
Just the absolute worst boy.
That's me.
Tucker, what is your history with Hancock? Have you seen this movie before? When did you see it? Where were you? What was going on?
I understand the question, Stephen. Thank you. Well, let me tell you. Well, you all know how I feel about Will Smith. How we've been down since he's the DJ, I'm the rapper, basically. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, I did finally get my hands on a copy of And in This Corner on vinyl, so that's a very good thing for me. It's another one I used to rent from the library all the time. I don't think anybody else got to get that from the library when I was a kid. But anyway, so like I'm way into Will Smith from way back in the day, and so when this came out, I was ready. I was way into seeing it, and I saw it at the movie theater, and I thought it was really cool. But then I just didn't watch it. I've always had a high opinion of it. And over the years, I think I kind of wondered if maybe it was going to hold up. But I did watch it last night at work. And, well, it does hold up. In fact, it holds up really, really well. One thing I was thinking when I was watching this movie last night was, man, for a bad movie, this is real good, because it is objectively bad. It's objectively a not a good movie. When all is said and done, is objectively not a good movie. But for a bad movie, it's real good. Like it's real good. The stuff that works in it works so well. Yes, the stuff that works in it works so well, and the stuff that doesn't work just stands on the shoulders of the stuff that does. And I just it's above average for me. It gets points for originality. It gets points for chemistry and the lead actors. There's just a lot of really cool stuff about it, and I really like it. And I'm glad I watched it again. But I'm not going to keep my fingers crossed for a 4K release.
You know, in my binging, I was worried because I've been binging, and now specifically I was like, let me see how they feel about these mid-aughts, early 2010s comic book movies. You know, so I most recently, I mean, this is way better than Elektra, of course.
Right.
Way better. Way
better.
Yes.
No contest.
But so I was kind of worried I was like, how hard are we gonna be on this movie? But yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know if I would say it's a bad movie that's really good, but it definitely there's some very like glaring dated flaws. Mainly the gay jokes, obviously. Like that's very 2008, and we got plenty of that going on. And even still, there's at points it's not that bad, because at one point Hancock's like, and then you drew the short stick, your head's going up my ass. I was like, wait, you want somebody's head up his ass? I was like, Hancock queer ally? Question mark? I don't know. I'm not
that
sure.
Question mark's doing a lot of heavy lifting here, DeVaughn.
You know, so it's like even those like kind of really dated flaws like kind of didn't bother me as much. And then there was also things that we're seeing in this that, yeah, we've seen a bunch of now. But this is from 2008. Like there were certain things like the whole like the superhero that stands and lets a vehicle run into them and destroys it. You know, like this is only like the second time that happened after Smallville. You know, and then how many times have we seen that now? And you know, so many superhero properties. So it's like you can be watching it and you can be like, oh, like of course it has that trope. Oh, of course it has that one. But like this being in 2008, it was skewering the tropes that weren't created yet. Like, you know, like at this point, it was like, I don't even know if I know this came out the same year as Iron Man. But like, I mean, like, yeah, we had, you know, Batman Begins as far as like really good superhero stuff and the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies. But like, there still weren't as many tropes to really pull apart just yet. So it's like, we kind of watch this now and it's like, oh, they kind of predicted some stuff. And like, you know, we're kind of leaning into that. So it's like, it was surprisingly like refreshing.
The genre itself at this point has only really been going very strong for about 8 years. Cause I would say it starts in earnest.
Since X-Men hits.
In 2000. So like, and there's still a lot of comic book movies that get made during that time, but most of them are fairly, I don't know, contemptuous, I would say, of the audience for comic book movies is kind of the attitude. I think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is one of the few exceptions where they're not like just showing outright contempt for the comic book audience and like changing a bunch of stuff because it's got to be different for the movie. Like that's still being very true to the source material. Of the three of us, I'm probably going to come down hardest on this movie, and I still am pretty mid on it.
Because you hate Will Smith.
Not at all.
Yeah, you do.
No, how dare you? How dare you, sir? No, I saw this movie in theaters, and I have not seen it since. I saw it on a date.
Yeah,
perhaps
it's a date movie.
The single most awkward date I've ever been on in my life. She brought her sister to the date, and which immediately bad sign.
Older sister or younger sister?
Like younger by like a year or two. No, it was definitely not a babysitting sort of thing. So yeah, just awkward situation. It was kind of like one of those, like we'd gone out once before and the first date had gone fairly well. So we asked her out again. We're like, let's get dinner. Let's go see Hancock. And she's like, oh yeah. And like I show up at the restaurant and she's like, oh yeah, I brought my sister. I hope that's okay.
That means the first date was good, but she was skeptical. She was like, maybe this was too good. I need to bring some backup to investigate.
or maybe it was like, I need to figure out how to let this guy down easy. Maybe I need someone else's opinion on how like to best. Well, I will say there was no third date. So,
oh man,
I don't know if it was Hancock. I don't know if it was me. but there was no third date. But I have not
You
seen
got
this movie.
hand-cucked while watching
I was
Hancock.
gonna say maybe she brought her sister because the implication of you taking her to a film called Hand-cock.
She's like, there is no way I'm blowing this guy. You got to come with me.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not gonna go see it.
Under no circumstances. And I mean that bore out. So what do you know? But yeah, no, that was the last date, and we had I think we had worked together. So yeah, it was kind of one of those like, well, I guess I'll see you Monday.
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of things.
been there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it didn't work out, and have not revisited this movie since. It's kind of been on my radar ever since. I know the Black Men Can't Jump in Hollywood podcast reference it a lot. Their whole is Hancock a good movie debate that rages to this day.
That's funny.
And so I was like, well, let's engage with it. Is Hancock a good movie? And I think I came out of it going, it's okay. Like spoilers, but I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of movie that it's a very confusing movie in a lot of ways because it makes you feel lots of different things. And like I was saying before, like you see the ways in which it is bad. You can see them very clearly. But most of the time it just doesn't matter because like the other parts are so good. It's the kind of movie you could base a whole podcast, years of weekly episodes of a podcast just arguing whether this movie is good or not.
Yeah.
Well, because I think what the debate comes down to, and Tucker's already mentioned, is it's kind of a tale of two movies for a lot of people. Like there are two big storylines that are, it's not even an A and a B plot. Like they are both A plots. They just like kind of, the way that they like kind of merge together. And like on this rewatch, I thought they did come together better than I remembered because like, yes, there is the rehabilitating the asshole, guy with powers and trying to make him into a true hero. Which I think is like, yeah, that feels more like something we have seen before, like in line with like kind of some classic comic book stuff. Like, yeah, it's a subversion, but at the same time, like we've seen this before. We've seen the anti-hero become a true hero, or whatever. And that stuff is like, played for laughs, and there's all sorts of humor and things like that in it. But then when you have the second part of it, which is like this, these gods that were paired together, and like when they're together, they don't have powers and they can live lives, but if they are separated, then they can help humanity. So it's like, do you want to live a good life and be in love, or you follow this call to duty in a way? And I think that's an interesting way to take a superhero, especially someone similar to Superman, which like the big questions, with his character is like, yeah, he has all these powers, but like, does that make him obligated to help? And I think, especially with this coming out 2 years after Batman or after Superman Returns, which is boring. Like it's not bad, but it's very boring. And they were trying to do this like homage to the Richard Donner ones and even to like just the even older comics, and it just comes off very like it was supposed to be nostalgic and romantic, and it just came off very boring and just like uninspired. So I feel like this coming out 2 years, I feel like Peter Berg was like, I really fucking hated Superman Return, and this is the antithesis to it. And I think that is also kind of weird. So like, but you can tell he, cares about the character. Again, like, yeah, they never say Superman in this, but like, there's all these allusions like, oh, do you come from another planet? You're the only one of your kind, blah, blah, blah. So it's like obvious, but so I don't know. I think the exploration of just like, what is your purpose in life? Like, is it to connect and be with people and all these things, or is it to do you have a greater purpose, and like when and how do you decide what to do? I think they actually come together better than I thought, but like the second half does take out a lot of humor. Like the humor like level like drops significantly, and it's like it makes it more noticeable. I think if they would have kept a more consistent tone, then the two plots would merge together better.
I think it's an easier the transition is an easier pill to swallow when you already know it's coming. So it's definitely a better second watch than a first watch. And Something it reminded me of this time was those old movies that they put out like in the 70s and 80s where like they did a TV pilot and a couple episodes, but then nobody picked it up, so they just turned it into a movie.
A TV movie,
where like you have like the first half is one story and the second half is a completely different story with the same characters. That's kind of what this reminded me of. And also, wait, I was going to say something about. Nope, I lost it. Sorry.
No, I agree. The original script was written by Vincent Ingo. It was a spec script he wrote in '96 called "Tonight He Comes," and it was like this very, very serious look at a suicidal superhero, basically, and kind of a deconstruction of really the superhero tropes that kind of came out of the late 80s, early 90s with the Batman franchise in particular, and is kind of an examination of those and sort of a response, I think, as well to the grittier superhero era of the comic books in the 1980s as a result of things like Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns. Those comic books kind of leading to a much darker tone throughout the entire industry. And then it gets rewritten and just a ton of humor just gets infused into it because people are like, well, it's too dark. It's too dour. No one's going to want to sit through this. Like in the early stages before a lot of that humor got infused, we mentioned Michael Mann was originally attached. He decides he wants to direct Miami Vice instead because of course he does. That is the most Michael Mann movie that ever did Michael Mann. A future episode of this podcast, Miami Vice, because you pretty much can tell he wanted to make more of those, except for Colin Farrell was just on all the cocaine.
Well, appropriately so for the location of the film and the character.
And the character, yes. And he is a fiend for mojitos, lest we forget.
Him and Al Pacino should get together on something and just see who can get more coked out. How fantastic would that be?
For all time's sake.
For all time's sake.
Come on, Al. For all time's sake.
For all time's sake, Al. Then Jonathan Mostow, he of Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, U-571, and the fucking Kurt Russell masterpiece that is Breakdown.
Hey, I love that movie.
Breakdown fucking slaps. I love Breakdown.
Wow. So JT Walsh, does the world miss JT Walsh as much as I do?
Every fucking day we miss JT Walsh.
Every minute of every day. Golly,
what
Duke.
A fucking legend, JT Walsh.
You stick that guy in any Stephen King adaptation, you got a winner.
Anything at all. Like, he's amazing in Pleasantville. Like,
Agreed.
Just playing, like, just this big over-the-top villain. And I'm just like, God, I love you, JT Walsh. He, in A Few Good Men, just shoots himself in the head. JT Walsh just committing suicide all over that movie.
It happens in that movie, yes. Spoilers to anyone who hasn't seen it.
I mean,
maybe they couldn't handle the truth, so that's why we had to tell them.
But yeah, fucking JT Walsh. Jonathan Mostow is attached to direct. Then Gabriel Muccino steps in 2006. And then finally, late 2006, we get Peter Berg comes on board. The film is changed from the title Tonight He Comes, the original title, which, I mean, the porn parody just writes itself.
They don't have to change the title.
Don't have to change pretty much a blasted thing about the title, no.
Blasted.
And then it becomes John Hancock, and then from there eventually just gets shortened to Hancock. Which, again, the porn parody title writes itself. So
yeah.
And for as many, again, cringy 2000s gay jokes this movie makes, they never make any about his name. Not a once. I was shocked.
You would have expected. And here's the thing. I think I don't know, maybe, I think earlier in the 2000s, I think someone would have. And maybe that was in the script and someone's like, maybe this isn't that movie. Or like, maybe it's like a Jason Bateman riff and they're like,
it almost feels like a Will Smith contract clause. I could see him being like, "Hey, you can't make any jokes about his name. Like, not I can make the jokes, but you can't." No, like almost,
but not because I think because it would be too easy of a joke.
Right.
It's too easy. It's already there. Like, you're already making the joke in your head. They don't have to make it in the movie, really.
Right.
I mean, it's very funny. I mean, it's very funny that, like, you know, it comes around that it's like, oh, because it's a very silly, like, somebody asked him for his John Hancock and he decided that was his name, you know, so it's like they go the opposite route.
Right. Yeah. Which works. Honestly, like that explanation worked for me. I thought that was pretty fun. Yeah. And then there's always the part of me that whenever I hear someone say John Hancock, there's the part of me remembering Tommy Boy that goes, it's Herbie Hancock. But that's just, you know, me and my millennial baby mind and what it does. So do with that what you will. But yeah, so we the movie films in LA in mid 2007, July 2007, comes out a year later. And it feels like a very LA movie. Like DeVaughn, in the hierarchy in the pantheon of LA movies, where do you put this one? You being a resident of Los Angeles.
Is it above or below Run Ronnie Run?
I haven't seen that one.
That's too bad.
But I mean, actually, I was actually pretty impressed. I forgot like how LA of a movie this was. I couldn't remember if it was like, oh, generic city town. But yeah,
Vancouver as LA.
As far as like, you know, what makes a good LA movie, because this is great, because like on my podcast we just did a bunch of LA based horror. Right. So like, I mean, we get the different neighborhoods because he goes to Hollywood. We see downtown. Ray and his family live in the Valley and Encino. You know, so I'm like, okay, like we're getting it. And like, I love how the first set piece is him like, you know, stopping this chase, like destroying half of the 110 and like 101. And for those of you that live in LA, that's literally the worst section of highway in this city. It's ridiculous.
Very cathartic, you think?
Huh?
Very cathartic filmmaking, you think?
So I was like, this is great because now there's actually an excuse to why there would be this bad of traffic on the 110. Because like this section of highway in LA, it never does not have traffic. Like it's the one section that no matter what time you drive it, it is just chunked up. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it was cathartic. I was like, thank you, Hancock. I hate that place.
It's the only thing worse than the Loop, Steven. The only thing worse than the Loop.
God, the Loop. I don't know. There are stretches in Atlanta that make my blood boil. So
yeah, that's true.
I would have liked to have seen him like interact more with because we do see like him and what's her face are like fighting on like the Hollywood like Walk of Fame. He would have like blended in like so well with that culture. Like I thought they could have done like an interesting thing. Like he like uses his powers to like do like little like street performances like on Hollywood Boulevard like with this like group. It's a very interesting like so I think that's their one LA missed opportunity that they like could have given his character. But other than that though, like yeah, we see all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's all correct for the most part, all geographically and everything. So yeah, pretty LA movie.
Right on. So pretty high up in that hierarchy. I'm glad to hear that. I like it.
And also in the fact that in this world, people have no problem like calling this guy names and shit and like being upset and like I love that we're dropped in to where he's already, I mean, we find out later he's super fucking old, but like he's been around LA already for a while to where people are not like, oh, it's do you believe in the Hancock guy? Like, no, like everybody knows who fucking Hancock, and now people are not even impressed anymore. They're over it already. I think that's a very interesting. I'm like, you know, that is very LA because you can really only do that in LA or like New York or something.
Right. Well, they straight up call him a punk bitch to his face too. Yeah. After he saves Jason Bateman, they don't care. They're like, you suck.
They criticize. Like, I love that they're to the point to where they go, well, why didn't you fly the car up? They're trying to give him notes now. To the point where they're with this guy.
The whole first act of this movie feels very, or maybe the first half of the movie feels very LA to me. Like someone had the idea, you know what would be really funny is if we give a superhero a publicist. Like, what if a superhero had a publicist and like he was just such a shitty superhero, he needed someone to clean up his image. Like, that just feels like a very LA, a very Hollywood kind of thing that someone in a boardroom's like, that's a funny idea, make that movie.
In the social media era now, again, like I think that helped the movie in its favor and rewatching it because I was like, oh yeah, like because now it would be social media. Like the only thing in this one he has to worry about is YouTube, right. Which is really great. But like, which they go to YouTube multiple times in this movie. I was
They
like,
really do.
awesome. I love that. Because it was fairly new around this time. Like YouTube only came out in like 2005 or something like that.
Still had the watermark.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so like it would easily translate to today because I was like, oh, I know exactly what this would look like now. I mean, we've kind of seen a little bit of like social media in the superhero world, but actually not really a ton.
No, and I think that's something that feels very difficult for Hollywood screenwriters to do well is social media. And I think the more like culturally ubiquitous social media has become, I think the more difficult time they have at really pinpointing or saying anything meaningful or profound about it. So the fact that it's fairly new and the comment isn't about social media, but it's what the closest thing to social media that existed in that time is being used as kind of a backdrop for what the story actually is, I think works really well. And it's probably one of the better uses of the social aspect of the internet that I've seen in a film probably since 2008, honestly.
Word. Yeah.
Well, let's get into it, gentlemen. Let's talk plot, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
This is the part of the show we call the plot in 60 seconds. This is where one of us, usually at the behest of the D6 of Destiny or the Coin of Justice, will recount the plot of the film we're watching, in this case, 2008's Hamilton Hancock, God, in 60 seconds or less. But
can we put those two together? We see a mashup of those two pieces of fiction.
This movie was missing a musical number. Like for all the like needle drops that we have in this, we could have gotten rid of a couple of those and getting some real musical numbers. I don't know how, but
here's what we do. We don't need a film. That's what I'm saying. We don't need a film. We don't need a show. We need a record. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda and Will Smith. Hancock and the Fresh Prince. Hancock x Fresh Prince. Let's do it.
Hamilton
I mean,
Fresh
like
Prince?
the kind of rapping that they do in Hamilton is very similar to Will Smith's early style of like sort of the
storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm down for it. Lin-Manuel Miranda, you are a noted fan of the Disenfranchised podcast.
Well, and you know that he would be into it too. The kind of shit that dude's into, he would jump at that chance for sure.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah. I'm excited for his Warriors concept album that's set to come out later this year.
That's something, I'll tell you what.
Based on future episode of this podcast, The Warriors. If there's not a song called Come Out and Play, I'm going to be really pissed.
Look, I love Lin-Manuel Miranda, but like sometimes I'm just like, man, I don't know, dude. Like, is that the best use of your time, you know? He seems like I really want to hang out with him though, because we have very similar interests. And he seems like just the coolest guy ever.
Yeah. I mean, he's like you, a big Weird Al fan, so
that's true.
There's a video of him crying listening to Weird Al do the Hamilton polka. So,
yeah, dude.
Which, I mean, if Weird Al did that to a number of your songs, I know you'd be bawling your eyes out, man.
I would.
As I was saying,
anyway,
plot in 60 seconds, recounting the plot in 60 seconds. Our guest, the great DeVaughn Taylor, has graciously volunteered to deliver the plot. This is actually something that I've done a couple times on Specter Cinema Club. So happy to finally be able to return the favor.
Oh yeah, because I'm not even the one that does it on my show either. Because if we don't have a guest, then Garrett does it. Like I'm the one that always gets to skirt out of this. So so the pressure's on.
Pressure's on. All right. Well, I've got 60 seconds on the clock. I will give you the 30 and the 10-second warnings, and I will start the time whenever you start your synopsis.
John Hancock is an asshole version of Superman. He's drunk, sad, and lonely, but he still fights a little crime here and there. The people don't like him. He saves a guy. So then the guy says, I want to repay the favor by making you a celebrity. I'm going to fix your image. I'm going to un-asshole you, is pretty much what he signs up to do. So he tries to rehab Hancock, and then it starts to work, but there's something fishy going on with Hancock and his wife. And then we find out a little bit more lore and background that they have a lot more history behind them than much anticipated. And these kind of concepts come to a head as Hancock has to grapple with, does he want to be with the one person that doesn't make him feel lonely, or does he need to be the hero of the world and
10 seconds.
do immortal Superman stuff? Hancock. I was going to try and wrap it, but I couldn't come up with anything. All I came up with in my head is John Hancock, you got to change your ways or they're going to put you in prison for 14 days.
I mean, that works.
Wow.
And that's all I got for my Hamilton's Hancock. Hamilton's Hancock.
Hamil-cock.
Hamcock?
Hamil-cock. Sounds grosser that way.
You know, it really does. It really
Hamil-cock.
does. Oh, God.
Hey, did you guys see little Michael Myers in this movie?
Yeah.
From the Rob Zombie one?
Who is a SoundCloud rapper now.
Is he?
Yes, look him up. He's like that's what he does now. I don't think
I will.
He hasn't acted in a while, but like that's just like no. Just look at a picture of him now. The picture of him now is just really great.
I don't know how recent this picture. Oh, this is 2007, so no, it's not recent at all. But here's his Wikipedia page. Apparently, he goes by the name Great Dag.
Yeah.
So yeah, there he is, looking all creepy.
Let's have a look.
Shout out Dag Fish.
Let's see what we got.
Dag Fish.
Oh well, that's him when this movie came out. Man, come on.
I mean, he looked creepy as hell though. You also get the little kid from the middle. Is the other?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. The weird looking kid with the big head and the squeaky voice.
Yes. The one that's like Hancock, bad guy. I'm like, what is?
The first person in the movie to call him an asshole, yes.
And also the first asshole, yeah.
I was like, wow, this movie calls him an asshole twice in the first 3 minutes. That's daring. And then I was like, oh no, everyone just calls him an asshole in this movie.
Well, half of the asshole count came from the scene with Dag Fish, with their interaction. Half of, there's 10 assholes in that one on the count alone.
He gets all Marty McFly about it.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Which you
must be a trait that is shared amongst members of his species, because Homegirl gets pretty mad when somebody calls her crazy.
Well, I mean, just a good rule of thumb, just calling a woman crazy, that's always going to end well for you.
But what if she's crazy? I've met legitimately crazy women, though. What am I supposed to say?
No, you're still can't.
Insane.
You still can't. And that's the thing. You still can't, but you're allowed to call guys assholes because guys just have to know.
And most of them are. So you know, just call it like you see it.
So I'm curious for you guys. So between the two main plot lines, which interests you more? Which do you think works better in this? The rehabilitated asshole hero, or the lonely immortal god that does not know what to do with themselves?
I find the first half to be more entertaining, but I find the second half to be more stimulating to my brain as far as interest. It's interesting. It's a cool thing that I hadn't, a plot point that I never would have thought of, or that I haven't heard anything similar to it. Really, it seems like a pretty original idea, So I'm kind of both for different reasons. I don't think I could pick a favorite.
My problem with the second half of this movie lies in the inconsistency of the rules and how they're applied. Because the notion is when they're together, their powers are lessened, but they've theoretically been in the same city for a while. So is it close proximity? But then even when they're in close proximity, he's flipping beds over and knocking people into shit.
It takes a while.
They say it happens over time typically. And and she says for this particular time, it's happening faster than usual. What is that it is noted, but it's a little wish-washy, but that's what gets my brain going about.
It's the ambiguity of it. I think really, the intrigue, the mystery, kind of adds to it. I agree with you on that.
Because I'm right where Tucker is. Even though maybe the first half is funny and it's entertaining and it still has some heart and pathos to it. There's a surprisingly really tender male friendship here that I'm like, hey, for 2008, this is pretty good. Like, you know,
I love their chemistry.
Carrying the drunk guy to bed, taking his shoes off, and like, you know, encouraging, calling each other out. I was like, this is actually like a really like good written friendship. So like, you even get that in the first half. But then, yeah, as far as like my brain and my comic book nerdiness and things like that, like, as I always say, I would hate to be immortal. I think that would fucking suck.
Yes.
I'm trying to get out of here by like 75, 80 at the latest. Peace out.
You had a good run. Yeah.
Because I should be able to do it all. So like when people ask like, would you rather be a werewolf or a vampire? I do not want to be a vampire. I'm not trying to live. So which kind of ties in a movie. Have you guys seen Only Lovers Left Alive?
Not yet. It's on my list though.
No.
So it's about these vampire lovers. They have been together for thousands of years, and Tom Hiddleston's character is having a millennial crisis where he is just very sad about all the lives he's lived and everything he's seen, and how he's just sad about what the world's becoming, and he's just very pooped out about it. So he has to have his vampire girlfriend and then they like live separately, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna come back and take care of you. There's kind of something of that in this, where it's like, you know, like if they are together, then it's like, okay, why don't you guys just want to be together? And like, because like that's what she wants. She wants to like, you know, like grow old with somebody and then die. But they've been like kind of doing this. So like with the rules of this, I was like, so have they been in just like this like comic book ultimate situationship where they kind of keep coming together on and off throughout these things because they have lived all these years? So that means that they have not stayed together. So they are literally the ultimate situationship where they come together. It's all passionate, but then before they lose their powers, Hancock always has to save them from danger. So that's why he is destined to be, that he needs the powers so that way he can be a hero. So the two things between them, I'm like, that's a lot to think about in this movie. But then again, it is kind of more in the last 40 minutes of this, or not even, because I watched the extended version. The theatrical version is like just under 90 minutes, but like there's an extra 10 minutes in the extended unrated that I watched.
Extended unrated, and they still couldn't have the unedited version of the Ludacris song with Mystical. They're all like, move, get out the way. And you're like, move what? Who's moving? Ludacris? Chris? Mr. Luda? Who is moving? Could it be a bitch? You said bitch, though, right?
You said bitch, though,
right?
Said bitch? You said bitch?
You said bitch? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I their relationship is one, like, my impression is that they were together, and then this thing happens in the early 30s, that it causes him to be injured in such a way that he loses his memory, and she realizes that she's the thing keeping him from healing, and so she leaves, and so she takes it on herself then to depart and basically breaks up the relationship for the good of him, essentially.
For the good of humanity, even,
right,
too.
You might
because
say.
Like they both want to help humanity, but they both really like each other. But every time they get together, their powers go away and people try to kill them.
And I think that's why she keeps her powers under wraps, is because if she goes public, they're going to end up meeting. They're going to end up doing the same thing all over again. And that's not good for anybody.
Well, I think she takes that opportunity of him having the head injury, because she talks about how like he didn't know who she was and everything.
Right.
And she kind of takes that opportunity to save the world, essentially, by letting them both have their powers without him knowing that she even exists. And just by fucking the chance. Like, what are the chances?
Dumbest of luck.
Like, that's who he saves, is her husband. Like,
well, because it's like there's like also like some implied like magnetic like attraction, even because like we see like in like the first like confrontation, like their hands like are literally moving towards each other and they're like not even realizing it. So it's like there's like, so I don't know if that has to do with the fact that it was Ray that he is the one that saves. Yeah, I don't know. It is a very kind of happenstance. But then we also see that when they fight, a storm happens. So there's a lot of unexplained shit with the lore and like what, you know, their abilities and what happens when they come together.
The kind of thing you would typically delve into in a sequel, which this movie obviously never got, and at this point probably won't.
Yeah, because I was thinking like they definitely wanted a sequel, but then because I was thinking, I was like, because I was like, she does want to grow old with Ray, so doesn't Hancock still have to, like, so is he gonna come back around so that way she ages? I was like, so many questions by the end of this movie.
Right. I think the biggest question at the end of this movie that I would want answered in the sequel is, whose ass does Mike Epps' head go up? That's what I want the sequel to open up with, Mike Epps' head in somebody's ass. That's how you open that sequel. Hometown boy Mike Epps.
Indianapolis, Indiana's own Mike Epps.
It goes up it goes up James Morrison's ass. Red. The
Eddie Marsan,
the villain.
Can we talk about how great he is? I love Eddie Marsan. I think this might, in retrospect, be the first thing I ever saw Eddie Marsan in.
Really?
Yeah. I think this might actually be the first thing. I didn't know who he was at the time. Like, since I've seen him in, like, Miami Vice and in, what else was he in? World's End. World's End, which he's fucking amazing in. Like, he's a great that guy actor. He's like one of those guys who will just show up in something and you're like, oh, fucking that guy, yeah. But he is so funny in this. And, like, as soon as he shows up, you're like, oh, he's coming back later. Like, he loses his hand, so he's got a gimmick now. Like, he's got, like, the hook for the hand. And then he loses his other hand, which is such a fucking amazing moment that you're like, this guy needs to come back in the next movie multiple claws.
I love that he goes, you did not. Like, he is so offended that he's like, no, you did that on purpose. You tried to go for both hands. Right. I mean, I like James Marsan. I think the villain sucks. Like, that's like one of the very weak points of this. Even though the end is meant to be like kind of an anti-climax, because it's like, you know, the whole thing is it's not he does the final showdown. It's like, no, he has to run away. Is like kind of the, so I'm like, I get it, but at the same time, like, if we're gonna have some sort of villain antagonist, we could have did something, you know, with this. But then I guess at the end of the day, Hancock's his own villain. He doesn't need an actual antagonist.
And that's, I think, what they're ultimately trying to go for is like, it's a man versus himself thing. Absolutely. The problem is it's also a superhero movie. Like, Ang Lee's Hulk does that as well. And I think I like that movie quite a bit.
Me too.
But, like, the Nick Nolte as the absorbing man thing is probably the part of it that works least well for me. Like, just not a part of that movie that I'm particularly fond of. So, like, I think that's a difficult thing to do within the larger superhero context. Is have like that man versus himself thing, because our brains are so now hardwired for superhero, supervillain, punch. Like, that to do something different feels like a cheat in some ways. So you have Eddie Marsan here just kind of as the throwaway generic villain, like Paul Giamatti's the Rhino from Amazing Spider-Man 2. Who just kind of shows up as this kind of disposable villain that the hero can easily beat. But yeah, like, I would have liked to see more of him. I would have liked to see him like gather together more of like the people that Hancock has kind of like drug through the mud along the way. I think that would be a good hook for a sequel, is like the people versus Hancock.
The heads versus the asses.
You're muted, DeVaughn.
Oh, there he is.
No, I thought that was so funny that, like, yeah, they do the thing in the prison where it's like, oh, I put you guys here, you're gonna challenge me now, but like, did they think that they put power dampeners on him or something? Like, did they not expect that to happen? Like, I thought that was so funny. But
how do you step up to him like that? Like, you don't look up to Hancock like that. It doesn't matter if you're in prison or not. Like,
Hancock's not shackled or anything.
I
was very confused on like why they thought like something, but this movie does a funny thing that they get a lot of mileage out of TV exposition, and like I love how Red's backstory is just like on the TV with like Hancock just like walking around his apartment, like not really like listening. But it's like he has a doctorate degree in psychology, where he apparently radicalized his TAs and students into a crime syndicate, which then led into these high stakes, high violent robberies.
Gotcha.
Like this is all on the TV in the background.
I know.
I guess paying no attention to. Like it's a ridiculous amount of backstory for him. It's so funny.
And that's like the ultimate tell don't show. Like,
yeah.
We're just like exposition dumping in the background. Like it's not even important exposition. We're just going to put this on.
It's just there. Yeah. It's not really important at all.
In case you want to pay attention to it, in case you care, here it is.
And you might not, and that's okay.
I do.
But no, I fucking love Eddie Marsan. What a guy.
You know, speaking of stuff in the background in this movie that could maybe use a little more attention. So I kept seeing Johnny Galecki, and I think maybe he had a few lines, but what was he? He was like, what was the movie we were watching? And there was somebody in it that kept popping up in the background, a famous actor, and you just know that they had a bigger part, but it got cut out. I feel like I couldn't even tell you who Johnny Galecki's character is in it. I just kept seeing him every once in a while. And you don't waste Galecki.
I can say in the extended he does not get a bigger role.
Okay.
As far as like what was cut out of the theatrical version, but one thing about Johnny Galecki being in this, every time he has no glasses, he looks so evil. In any movie that I see him in without glasses, I'm like, he looks really evil. But he's just he's like one of the like investor people, but he's like supposed to be like the young like bro investor type.
He had no identity. I didn't know who he was, so every time I saw him I was just like, Ira, you are the man.
And that, I mean, yeah, absolutely, that's my touch point for Johnny Galecki as well.
Yeah. Well, in Roseanne, obviously, yeah. I mean, but you might be surprised to hear this, Tucker. My parents didn't let me watch Roseanne as a child. I can't believe it.
I know, right? Hard to believe, and yet here we are. But like, you also get kind of a similar like friends of the director kind of thing. Like Akiva Goldsman and Michael Mann, who are producers on this movie, are like just in the boardroom scene.
They're just there, yeah.
Just like at the tables hanging out. Like, why? Because they're producers and they were like there for the day, I guess.
And they look good in suits. They look good in suits, man. Yeah,
absolutely, yes. So like, it's just kind of it feels like doing a favor for our friend, the director of this movie, kind of a thing. And the Johnny Galecki cameo feels very much of a piece with that as well. Thomas Lennon at least has some lines.
Yes, he says things, and I'm like, wait, is that Thomas Lennon? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's that Thomas Lennon too. Like, and we love to see it. Anytime he pops up, I'm always just like, that guy. I love that guy. Lieutenant Dangle. We love to see him.
He's I love to watch interviews with him and behind the scenes stuff with him, because he's just the most fun dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, being around him has got to be like super fun. I think that's why he gets so many small roles in movies, because they're like, well, I don't know where we're going to put him in this movie, but we really need him on set.
Exactly.
Because like, we want to have a good time.
We want. Right.
Yeah.
Just to keep everything loose. And like, I would say anyone in that kind of like David Wayne, like circle of people, like those guys just all seem like a really fun hang. Like, if I could hang out with like one cast, it would probably be the cast of Wet Hot American Summer. Like, that just seems like a fun time. Let's just hang out with those dudes.
But I preferred H. John Benjamin be in human form, if possible, instead of a can of peas.
Right. Like he is in Wet Hot American Summer, the first day of camp.
Yes.
Right.
I consider them all one thing.
They kind of are.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Wet Hot American Summer. Fucking love it.
So good. Yo, can I just sidetrack real quick, Steven? If you love Wet Hot American Summer, please tell me you've seen They Came Together.
Not yet.
Oh, boy. So, like, nobody knows about this movie, but it's the romantic comedy version.
About it.
of Wet Hot American Summer. It's all the same, basically the same cast.
That's like Paul. Is that like
Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler?
Right.
Yeah. It's the exact same kind of humor as Wet Hot American Summer. A majority of the same cast. Everybody behind the scenes is mostly the same.
I think David Wayne directed it too. So
and it is hilarious.
I like David Wayne. So I wasn't a big fan of Role Models, but like looking at the cast of this movie, I'm gonna dig this.
I feel like Role Models was kind of his attempt at a mainstream breakthrough, which is why I think a lot of the choices in that film that seem a little bit off for him seem a little bit off. Right. But I still think it comes together in the end as a good and funny film.
I would love to do just a complete David Wayne watch through. I think that would be a worthwhile endeavor.
Let's do it together as friends, Steven.
I love that idea. I love that for us. I really do.
I also do. Me too.
DeVaughn, you in?
I'm in.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah. What else to say about Hancock? Like what?
So I did want to, because I was pulling up the differences between the PG-13 theatrical cut and the unrated extended cut.
Right.
I mean, it is 10 minutes longer, and so I'm looking at the things, because you guys both watched the regular version, correct?
I am fairly confident that I did.
I watched. I rented it, and the version I watched was about an hour and 45, hour and 48. But it didn't say it was a director's cut or anything.
Oh, that is the extended unrated version. Yeah, because the original
that's a version I've never seen.
Then. Yeah, because the theatrical is only 92 minutes. And so Tucker, you saw more of the relationship stuff, because that is what a lot of the stuff that is cut out of the theatrical one. Because Steven, you didn't get to see the sex bit, right?
No. Well, I don't think so.
At the beginning with the bar gal. So
no, definitely did not. Yeah.
Okay. So what you missed was this gal hits on Hancock at the bar and is all excited because he's a superhero. He takes her back to his trailer, and it's so like it's a weird scene.
It's dumb but fantastic.
It's dumb, but like then there is like kind of a sadness to it afterwards. So he's like, she's all drunk and like wanting to fuck, and he's just like, okay, hey, but listen, I gotta warn you, when it's time for me to come, like you gotta get far away. Like he's like talking about mountaintops, and it's like all very awkward and stuff. And then so they're fucking, and they don't show it. They just show the trailer like shaking, all violently and whatever. And then he's trying to yell for her to stop, and he has to throw her away. And then he jizzes bullets essentially through the ceiling of the roof. Trailer.
Pop,
they
pop,
like
pop.
shoot. They're like boom, 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 boom.
The Kevin Smith Superman.
Where does it land?
But then she's like all weirded out and like all like about it and like, wait, what? And it's like, girl, you wanted to fuck the superhero. That's what happened apparently. And she like got all weird about it, and it's like sad because he's like, hey, I tried to warn you, like, and like you can tell.
Oh, and he's trying to be all nice and stuff after. Yeah, he wants to have some kind of actual human connection. And now that that's out of the way, he thinks maybe now that we did the thing, maybe we can actually connect as humans. But no, she doesn't want fuck all to do with him after that. She leaves through the bathroom window and drives away.
So yeah, so this is like, so you do see that like he is like, lonely and yearns for this like romantic connection and stuff. So that plays into more. And then the other significant like extended part is between him and Charlize Theron after they go to dinner and everything. In the theatrical, they just like almost kiss, and then she flies away or whatever, or like does the thing or whatever. In the extended, like and they actually make out, like they like their hands like are almost touching, and then they notice the bruise and they like full on make out. It's not just like a like, oh, like will they won't they like type deal. So like they lean into that stuff that makes that second half a little bit more interesting, and the lore and immortal stuff, it makes it a little bit more interesting.
And that may be why you guys are a little more positive on the second half, because you actually got to see a fuller version of it than I did.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and speaking of the scene with the gal that he takes home from the bar, I think that for me, that makes his willingness to befriend Jason Bateman's character make more sense, because he's just looking for any kind of human connection at this point, And then when Jason Bateman defends him in that crowd,
right,
takes him home, feeds him dinner, and he kind of sees that this might be a friendship that he could have, like a normal human interaction that he could have. And I think that's why he starts to kind of clean himself up, is so that he can have this, at least this relationship with this guy that actually wants to be his friend and wants to help him, you know?
Well, and I think the child is a big part of that too. Like the son, Aaron.
Yeah, because he's always nice to the kid.
And that kid idolizes him. Like, particularly after he finds out that, oh, this guy saved my dad. Like, and Hancock, like when they visit him in prison, he leaves him his action figure and like, that's my best one, and I'm leaving it here for you. Like, the kid fucking loves him and adores him and just idolizes him. And I think he realizes in that moment that whether he likes it or not, or wants to be or not, he is a role model. And that gives him, I think, an extra reason, an extra level to kind of step up his game and maybe clean up his act a little bit.
Agreed.
Yeah. There's again, like I was like, again, like whenever I went back to this, I was like kind of shocked and that I was like, oh, these actual like, you know, pathos moments like actually are there. Like, cause like, yes, like so much of the humor is this irreverent and just like, oh, like, you know, all these, you know, what if, you know, things about Hancock being the asshole hero. But like there is like a very much a human thing. I kind of, because I didn't realize like before rewatch, I was like, oh, Peter Berg did this, the guy that has kidnapped Mark Wahlberg into doing all these emotional action epic dramas or whatever. Like literally
the gung ho America shit. Like let's look at his last several films.
He's done. I believe it's the past 5 films, 5 or 6 films, all Mark Wahlberg. Spencer Confidential was like a action comedy, so he was like kind of getting back to some of the stuff he did before.
Future episode of this podcast, Spencer Confidential, with Winston Duke.
I mean, this has got to do Friday Night Lights, though. You know, it's like it's kind of crazy that, you know, Hancock was 2 films after this. He's had such a weird career.
He really has. Like, this is his first big budget movie. But before that, he's made like his first film is the late 90s like bad boy movie, Very Bad Things, which is like a bachelor party in Vegas that goes wrong. I think it's got like
Cameron Diaz, Jon Favreau, Christian Slater, Jeremy Piven,
Slater, Daniel Stern, just to give you an idea of what kind of movie that is. Gene Triplehorn's in there as well. Like, it's got a good cast, but I don't remember it being very good. It's like a hooker dies in a bedroom kind of a thing. His second movie is The Rundown, the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson film, The Rundown, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then he does Friday Night Lights in 2004, The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Garner in 2007.
That's like his Miami Vice, but not.
Right. And then down to the Jamie Foxx casting. And then Hancock comes right after that. After that, he does a couple episodes of the Friday Night Lights series. He does future episode of this podcast, Battleship. And then he gets into the America Yay stuff. He does Lone Survivor. He does Deepwater Horizon, Patriots Day, future episode of this podcast, Mile 22, and future episode of this podcast, Spencer Confidential. Like, look, we got a lot of movies to cover, so we might not get to it, but we could, is what I'm saying.
Say hi to America for me.
You just have to do a Peter Berg month, it sounds like.
We
he has enough, it seems.
Great.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Or honestly, we could fold a Peter Berg month and a Mark Wahlberg month in on each other, honestly. And because there's 2 Mark Wahlberg, Peter Berg collaborations that we could cover, Mile 22 and Spencer Confidential. And then there's just Battleship just kind of hanging out.
Could we, if we did Mark Wahlberg as well, like separate from him, would we be able to do Fear? Would that count?
I don't know. I haven't seen Fear.
So Fear is Marky Mark's best performance because
that's what I've heard.
He's much like in straight up what's the Scorsese movie? Departed. Much like in The Departed, he's pretty much playing himself. He's a psychotic boyfriend that stalks his girlfriend and tries to physically assault her several times. It's very scary. That's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
It is terrifying. And Marky Mark is terrifying in that movie. I'm scared of him because of that movie. Like, I won't talk shit to him to his face because of that movie.
That's why you.
I'll do it on the podcast. Fuck that motherfucker.
Right.
Sure, yeah. But like, if we were face to face, I'd be like, "Oh, say hi to your mother for me."
He ain't never gonna listen to this show. Are you kidding me? He's got other.
That's the main reason I don't ever say my exact location, just in case Mark Wahlberg hears this podcast. I don't want that man walking around New Hampshire looking for me. Dang. Whew.
Good thing Peterberg's got him under control. He's got him wrangled.
Right.
Yeah,
he's got him wrangled.
We've
Peter
already
Berg
covered.
is saving me.
We've already covered 3 Mark Wahlberg movies on this podcast. I think the ones we have yet to cover, Four Brothers.
Ooh, I like that one though.
I mean, Max Payne.
3 Stacks isn't that? Yeah, Max Payne is not good.
The Other Guys.
Not good.
I think that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty alright.
It's all right. I mean, and then Mile 22 and Spencer Confidential and Scoob.
So this has
probably Infinite and Uncharted. There's 8. There's 8 Mark Wahlberg movies we could potentially cover on this podcast.
So speaking of Mark Wahlberg, and this doesn't have to do with Hancock, but ties back into Peter Berg, though. You know how AMC does those screen unseen screenings on Mondays or Tuesdays, where it's like you can like see a new movie like a few weeks early, but you don't know what it is. They just like say it's a movie.
Regal does that too. It's the Monday mystery movie.
Yeah, they like give you the rating and then sometimes like they'll like specifically, sometimes they're horror, sometimes they're not. But so I went to one of those, and it ended up being Arthur the King, that Mark Wahlberg movie, and I thought that it was a Peter Berg movie. I was like, oh, it's that guy doing another Mark Wahlberg doing one of those movies again.
You'd be forgiven for thinking so.
And then so I left. I went and saw future episode of, actually no, I don't think you can. I went and saw Madam Web instead.
No, we're definitely covering Madam Web. No,
that's the New Year's episode, right?
No, that's
we do at the end of the year. We normally do a.
I think we're covering that in conjunction with another episode for Venom 3.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
Well, or Kraven the Hunter, maybe one of those two. But
so I said to myself, I would rather watch Madam Web than one of the Peter Berg, Mark Wahlberg things, even though Peter Berg did not do Arthur the King. I just thought he did.
We'll have you back to talk Madam Web then.
Into it. I still haven't seen it, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Her web connects us all.
I'll bet.
All right. Last call for Hancock thoughts, gentlemen.
Mike Epps. I really like Mike Epps. I wish he were in this movie more. That's all.
I do too. God, yeah. This movie needs more Mike Epps. Most movies need more Mike Epps, honestly.
I could find a spot for him in most movies. Yeah. That's where you put Mike Epps right there.
The only movies that don't need more Mike Epps are the movies starring Mike Epps.
Usually, yeah. Strangely, it's weird. A little bit goes a long way, you know? But most people don't use him enough. But then the people that use him enough use him too much.
Like, a movie he's in that I think he should be in more, the Hangover. Like, he's in that for like 3 scenes. He needs to be in more scenes of The Hangover.
He was great as Richard Pryor, too. Yeah.
I got a question, because, I mean, I think it is obvious now. Because I didn't realize that this was produced by Michael Mann. Was that that bank shootout? Was that him giving a shout out to Heat? Because like that's like Hancock's like first like heroic moment in his suit and everything. Yeah, we got Heat 2 right there. In Hancock.
Can we get a Hancock cameo in the upcoming movie Heat 2?
That would be crazy.
How rad would that be?
Or at least let's put Eddie, a handless Eddie Marsan on the team. Like, just, yeah.
That would be
some kind of very subtle crossover.
Like in Heat 2, we just see Eddie Marsan walk in. We see the hook, or we see the double hook hands. And people are like, oh shit, it's red.
Please, Michael Mann, if you have any love for your fans, just do that for us, please.
If you have any integrity as an artist, you'll do this for us.
Hey, I think
integrity's on the line.
I think he's a fan of Hancock because I did not realize how well this did at the box office, which I know we're going to talk about.
We are, yeah. No, this movie, and again, it's kind of one of those things like, well, if this movie does as well as we're projecting, we'll absolutely do a sequel. And then no sequel materialized. Even though it did really fucking well. So it opens number 1 at the box office. It opens July 4th weekend because, of course, it does. That's
Will Smith, baby.
That's right. Hey. This is like his last big 4th of July opening, too, if I'm remembering correctly.
Will Dependence Day. That's what we need to start celebrating.
Into Princeton's Day? No, yours is better. Yours is better.
So yeah, this movie opens number 1, 62.6 million in its opening weekend. Its total gross across the entire weekend, because it opens on Tuesday the 1st. Its entire gross across the entire weekend, 103.9 million in its opening weekend. That's a big deal. Now, in terms of a multiplier, not great, at least not domestically. But it opens at number 1. It, ultimately, domestically, it's going to accumulate 227.9 million.
Still nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all. Like, there are blockbusters today that would love to make that. And then internationally, it makes another.
Wished it made that.
Right?
Yeah.
Internationally, it makes another $396.3 million. Bringing us to a worldwide box office of $624.2 million.
That's over $500 million, Stephen.
A big ass hit is what we call this movie.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I remember seeing this in theaters. I saw it with my dad. It was a classic. Get out of school, and he's like, "Hey, we should go see a movie." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go do it." I remember. Definitely getting to the theaters to see this, and I think I maybe saw it one more time after that, and then until like yesterday.
Right on.
Look, I want to buy the 4K because there is a 4K. I just looked it up, but it's the theatrical version. There's no option to get and I like that extra stuff. I don't think I could watch the theatrical again.
Yeah,
at least I don't want to own it. I could watch it, but I don't want to own the theatrical. I want to own the.
Yeah, that's kind of tough because I wonder what the 4K would look like. Because I was gonna say for 2008, the effects are pretty good.
Yeah,
it doesn't. Right, yeah,
it doesn't look too bad. Like they're not doing the. Good. If Michael Mann had made this movie, it'd be like all digital filmmaking stuff, like he did on Collateral. And now Michael Mann actually
good though.
Here's the thing: Michael Mann will make digital filmmaking look fucking amazing. But not every filmmaker is going to like do the work necessary to make that happen. Like Collateral looks good. Miami Vice looks good. Like those movies are incredible, but they're shot digitally at a time when people don't know how to shoot digitally.
Oh, this was shot on film.
Yes.
This was shot on film. So I'm assuming it'll probably look good on a 4K, but you might get some film grain, I would assume.
Which actually would lean into I forget how much they kind of lean into the Western vibes in this movie. There's like they do like a little Western motif with him.
A little bit. Which, coming from the star of Wild Wild West, we love to see
the drunk, sad cowboy. We've seen that guy.
Absolutely. And I mean, really, superheroes are just, the modern cowboy.
Yeah. In a way.
You can argue. So Hancock, number 1 at the box office. Number 2 at the box office in its second week is WALL-E, having made $127 million in its 2 weekends.
You believe they got a criterion of that? You believe Disney let them criterion it?
That was Andrew. Literally, Andrew Stanton wrote a letter to Criterion saying, "Please put my movie in the collection," and they're like, "All right,
okay." Sure, a very, very popular Disney Pixar movie. Sure, yes. Let's put that in the criterion. Why the fuck not?
No Eternal Sunshine. Where's that criterion?
You got to talk to Focus Features, man. Like, they're kind of... They like to do their own boutique stuff. They don't go through Kino Lorber or Umbrella. Like, they just, Focus is like, we got this. It's cool. We don't need you guys.
But do you, though, Focus? But do you?
Usually the Rogue releases, their horror offshoot of Focus are usually pretty packed with good shit. Like all of the two Cornetto trilogy movies they did. I don't remember if they did World's End, but Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, both of those DVDs. Holy crap, there was a bunch
love
of
those
crap
DVDs.
On
I own both of them. They're great.
Yeah, dude, so good.
So good. In third place, another comic book adaptation, Wanted. Not one of my favorites. I saw that one in theaters too.
I like Wanted. Wanted. Oh, I was eating good in this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is DeVaughn's prime right here. In fourth place, Get Smart, future episode of the podcast, Get Smart. Steve Carell as Maxwell Smart with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Alan Arkin, and Anne Hathaway in that movie. Bill Murray, I think, has a cameo in there too.
Oh, shit. I didn't know Alan Arkin was in it. Now I have to see it.
He plays the chief.
Are you kidding me? You know that's my main dude. Like,
I know.
anybody's my main dude.
You love Alan Arkin.
It started with The Rocketeer, and it's just grown since I was a child.
You know what movie I love Alan Arkin in? I always forget he's in it.
Wait Until Dark?
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
I forgot too until you said
yeah.
Holy
he's
shit.
the police chief, and So I Married, and he's hilarious in that movie. He's got like
great.
2 scenes, but he's so fucking good in it.
Alan Arkin, he will be missed.
He will. In fifth place, cut all that out. I'll do it again. We'll fix it in post. In fifth place, Kung Fu Panda, a movie we will never cover on this podcast because there's no way to do it. It's gotten 5 sequels. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Kung Fu Panda in 5 weeks has earned almost $200 million.
Good for it.
An even bigger hit than Hancock. And then rounding out the top 10, you've got past episode of this podcast, The Incredible Hulk, in 6th place.
Hey.
Another movie where there's an actor that shows
one, right?
Yeah. Another movie where there's an actor that shows up very notably, and you're like, isn't that Michael Kenneth Williams? And it turns out he had like a whole scene that Edward Norton insisted be in the movie that Disney just went, nah, we're cutting this. Universal went, nah, we're just going to cut this. We don't need this. Yeah. In 7th place, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Word.
In 8th place, future episode of this podcast, Kit Kittredge, An American Girl, opening wide this week.
What the fuck is that?
It's the American Girl movie.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll find out when we do an episode. I didn't mean to be so loud. It's just I have literally never heard any of those words together.
Was that like Barbie before Barbie? Like you're talking American Girl, the dolls, right?
Right. Yeah. My sister was a big fan of the book series, and so I knew who all the American Girls were growing up. I had a kid sister who was very into all that stuff. So
that's one of my go-tos in karaoke too, and I always shout out "Silence of the Lambs."
There you go. In 9th place, Sex and the City in This Economy.
Oh, both in the same movie?
In the same movie. Nuts.
You can't do both. You got to have Sex or the City. That's going to be the movie I make. Sex or the City.
Make
your choice. Decide.
And then in 10th place, a movie that I think is honestly very underrated. Speaking of Adam Sandler, You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
You keep saying that. You make me want to watch it. And I'm going to watch it one of these days, Steven. It's going to be your fault.
It is.
I like it.
It's an underrated movie, but I almost was gonna make a tweet one day about it being a very underrated movie, but then I said, "Oh yeah, in this climate right now, I don't know if I need to put this movie on the map anymore than it needs to be." Right. So I held my tweets, but yes, You Don't Mess with Zohan is an underrated Adam Sandler movie. It's so stupid, but it's.
And I'm not a big Adam Sandler guy, but I like that movie. So do with that information what you will.
To watch it.
The tomatometer score on Hancock is a 42%.
Oh, boo.
The critics' consensus, though it begins with promise, Hancock suffers from a flimsy narrative and poor execution.
You suffer from a flimsy narrative.
Yeah, see, this theatrical cut, it is significant. Is one of these cases. It actually is like significantly different.
Yeah, and again, that's the version I saw, which is why I think I'm weaker on this movie than the two of you who didn't see the version that I saw. The Metacritic score is 49, based on mixed or average reviews from 37 critics. And Tucker, you want to take a stab at the Letterboxd score for Hancock?
I'm going to say that the audience is going to be a little kinder to this one, especially the meme-scape that is Letterboxd, where there aren't any actual film reviews. It's all just LOLs and jokes. I'm going to say this one gets somewhere between 2.8 and 3.2.
In the immortal words of Maxwell Smart, missed it by that much. It's a 2.7.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
It's a 2.7. Yeah.
Jokes on jokes on jokes.
Jokes on jokes on jokes.
Why would you actually review a movie on a movie review website? Why would you actually do that? That sounds so stupid.
Tucker, you're asking questions I don't think you want to know the answer to.
It's true.
DeVaughn, out of 5 stars, how are you rating 2008's Peter Berg classic, Hancock?
Classic.
I don't know. I was feeling generous with this because, again, like, I don't know if it is just my kind of apathy for superhero movies at the moment, which is disappointing because I love superhero movies and comic book shit, but I'm just like whatever about it right now.
Same.
So I watched this and I was like surprisingly like, this holds up a lot better. And again, like can't stress enough this this director's cut is again like noticing like what actually they took out. I was like, oh, like, yeah, like if you keep all that stuff in, it fixes not all the problems that people have with the back end, but I think it makes it a little bit more smoother.
Right.
The pacing feels a little bit more even in that way. So I gave this a 4 out of 5. I was feeling pretty generous about this. I was like, you know what? This was I was very happy. I was trepidatious going in thinking like I was going to hate it, but I did not.
Right on.
Not at all.
Tucker, what about you?
Well, I think especially since I've seen this version now that is objectively better than the theatrical version, I'm going to give this a 3.5 and rising, which means by the next time I watch it, it might be a 4. Nice. And hell, at some point, it might even go further than that. You know how I get when I start getting obsessed about a movie and I'm like, I got to watch this 5 times in one day.
I sure do.
And that's going to happen at some point because I feel it. I really want that. I'm so mad that 4K doesn't at least have both versions. Like normally in this day, when you have an older film, I know it's not even 20 years old yet, but I mean old enough to where you have a director's cut, you have a theatrical cut, they were released separately. Now there's a 4K. You put them both on the disc.
Yeah.
You just put them. That's just common practice.
Well, that's like what you do for Blu-ray, the Steelbook.
Both versions. The fuck a Steelbook, man. Just give me the content. I don't give a fuck what it looks like. Like, you could just give me a disc with no label on it. As long as there's good shit on there, give me that commentary. Give me that making of. Give me both versions of the movie. Give me more deleted and extended scenes.
Sounds with like commentary. You need to go hunting for the bootleg 4K.
Shit. No, I don't do that shit. You know I don't do that shit.
It's a 2.5 for me because, again, I did not see the apparently vastly superior director's cut or extended cut. And I kind of want to after hearing you guys talk about it because it sounds like a much better movie than the one I watched, which, again, it's not as bad as I remember it being when I saw it in the theater these many years ago. And there is something about this era of superhero filmmaking that I remember kind of looking back on disdainfully. But then when I go back to revisit them, I'm like, I don't know if it's just because everything now is exactly the same, but like, this is better than I remember it being. Like, and I think it has to do with kind of the homogeneity and the sameness of the superhero landscape these days. It's become the dominant cultural like push. And so it's all kind of even the best of it is aggressively mediocre. And so it makes something like this, it's actually trying to do something, regardless of whether or not it does it well. Like, you kind of have to respect it. And I kind of do.
I don't know if this is, it's different, but I'm going to kind of lump them together. It's like kind of when I go back and I watch the extended edition of Daredevil. I'm like, hey,
yes,
this might not be the comic book Daredevil that you want, but as a movie itself and a take on Daredevil, I'm like, and especially like the extended that fills in a lot of those gaps and like things that people complain about the theatrical cut. I'm like, this is like a pretty decent movie, especially again compared to kind of the stuff that we're getting today. Like when you look back and it's like, oh, again, that was a movie, that wasn't a comic on the screen. That was a movie.
Right.
I think there's such a stark difference between those two versions of that film to like the theatrical cut for me is damn near unwatchable, but I fucking love the director's cut of Daredevil. It's so good. And when we
Future
cover it
episode
on
of
this
this
show,
podcast, Daredevil, yes, we will.
I would like to request that we watch the director's cut, because I do not want to watch the theatrical version.
Granted.
I don't even want to think about it.
Request granted.
Yes!
This movie also has the same ending as Daredevil 2, the jumping off the building, free dive before he flies away. LOL.
Yep.
Are you coming back for Daredevil director's cut?
It sounds like I am, because
okay, good. This is your formal invitation.
Because I didn't realize that you guys hadn't done it yet. I thought that
not yet.
Is this like a save for like a big numbered episode? I feel.
Well, we're saving Daredevil for, I think, when Daredevil Born Again comes out is kind of when we're wanting to correlate the release. So I don't know when that's scheduled. I feel like they're filming it now or have recently finished filming it. So whenever Disney puts that on a schedule, we'll have a release date for that episode. So.
And I will be there.
And DeVaughn will be there. Fucking A. You heard it here first, folks, but not last. DeVaughn, thank you so much for being on this episode, man. I am sorry it took us so long to get you on here, but look, we're going to make up for lost time. I have a feeling you're going to be coming back quite a bit to cover some pretty great movies and maybe some not great movies. I don't know. We'll see. But tell the folks where we can find you, what you're working on, what's coming up on Specter Cinema Club. Like, just plug, man. Plug.
Thank you so much. I appreciate having me. This was so much fun, and excited for more. If you want to hear more of me, you can check out my podcast, Specter Cinema Club, with my buddy Garrett McDowell. We check out a different subgenre of horror every month. We are currently, though, going through a franchise. We are doing the Alien series in like double feature form. And so, Alien and Aliens just dropped, and then we'll be kind of doing those throughout the month. And then next month we'll be doing Tim Burton stuff, and
Hell yeah.
in honor of Beetlejuice. And I believe, Steven, you expressed interest in coming on for Batman Returns. So Tucker, you can be looped in on that as well if you'd like.
Fucking A.
Hell yeah. So you can find us new episodes every Tuesday at Specter Cinema on all social medias. And of course, go check out Pod and Pendulum, wrapping up the VHS series, going to the Fly series. Gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, it's a great time. And did you say where we can find you on the socials?
Oh, and you can find me at all the usual places at _Daddy Disco.
Hell yeah. And DeVaughn is a great follow. The Specter Cinema Club is a blast. I've been on twice and always a good time. And of course, you know how we feel about the Pod and the Pendulum over here. So
shout out Wolf. Steven came on recently for that one, and that was a fun episode.
God, such a fun episode and such a great movie. I will stand by Wolf. I love that movie. I'm that weird guy who likes that. But we have been the Disenfranchised Podcast. You can find us on most forms of social media at disenfranchpod. Shoot us an email, disenfranchpod@gmail.com, and hear your words echoed by my voice on this very podcast. While you're actually out on the internet, swing by wherever you get your podcast, particularly if that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. That'll go a long way to helping us find more listeners like yourselves. You can also head over to patreon.com/disenfranchpod, where you can join at the free level and basically join the official conversation. When new episodes drop, you can leave comments right on the episodes, and Tucker and I will usually respond to them in some order or other. But yeah, it's a good chance to talk with us directly because our social media presence is spotty at best lately. So you can find us there. And if you want to throw $5 a month our way, well, then you get access to just hours and hours of content behind the paywall, including episodes of our, well, it used to be fairly regular, but now it's semi-regular at best, show What Are We Watching, where we talk about the media we've been consuming. Tucker, am I to understand new episodes of that show will be dropping soon?
I'm sorry. What were you saying? What show? What are we watching?
What are we watching?
I don't know that. I don't know. I've heard of that. What's that? Is that a new thing that someone's been doing?
No, I mean, this was your baby, so I would hope you would know something about it.
What are we watching? And you had put the wrong emphasis on a different syllable, so I didn't know which one you're talking about.
Right.
But yes, but what are we watching? It's coming back. It's just that your boy's been a bit busy lately. It's that time of year where I'm working during the day and I'm working during the night and I'm working during the day and then during the night, and there's not really any time for sleep. And when there's no time for sleep, there's no time for anything else.
You got to do the Mark Wahlberg route. You got to put 3 days in one day. What does he say? Whatever his thing. He starts his day at 2 a.m.
Oh God. Fuck hustle culture. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
But hopefully I have been told by Tucker that there will be some episodes of What Are We Watching dropping soon.
Hopefully. I hope so. I'm sorry. I know I made that into a bit, but I really was not paying attention because I've just been informed that I will be working alone again tonight. So I was kind of and it's Saturday.
So you really are a bad boy for life.
Bad boy.
So it's just gonna be worse than last night, which was real bad. But I'm gonna be okay, you guys. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna find time to take a shower at some point. That's gonna happen.
Unnecessary.
It's gonna happen.
Unnecessary.
It's gonna happen.
I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy. You can find me on a few forms of social media at Chewy Walrus. I'll let you figure out which ones I'm using these days. I'll give you a hint. It's not a lot of them. Tucker, where can we find you on socials these days?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Ice909. That's ICENINE. The number 0 and the number 9. I'm still going through my records alphabetically. Finally got over that Billy Joel hump.
It was a long time coming, but we got there.
And now it was wild because I finished up the Billy Joel and there was an Elton John record and Ricky Lee Jones. So it was all kind of sticking with sort of that same sort of deal. Mm-hmm. And then immediately it went to 3 records that I found out about in 2003 that were very modern at the time. So even though it's alphabetical, it's kind of autobiographical too, the way that it's playing out. So that's kind of rad. I just started I have a little John Mellencamp branch of my record collection. Not very many in the LP part, but I have a lot of 45s, but I'm excited to get through that when I can because I really look, John Mellencamp made 3 perfect albums between 1983 and 1987, and we're going to listen to all 3 of them. Just saying.
Seymour, Indiana's own John Mellencamp.
Hometown boy, him and Mike Epps should do a collaboration.
They 100% should.
I'd listen to that or watch it. John Mellencamp, the actor?
I feel like he's acted before. Probably. I may be making that up, but I feel like that's the thing that's happened. All right. And Tuck Mugs? No? Yes?
Yeah, Tuck Mugs. That's Tuck_Mugs. Also on Instagram, where you will soon be seeing my new Lincoln Square mug. And spoilers, they changed the shape. And also, you will be soon be seeing, if Jimmy ever gets off of his ass and sends it to me, a Grand Voodoo Band Tuck Mugs crossover where we're going to be featuring the very mug that is shown in Jimmy's new music video for his new single, You're Making Me Nervous, in parentheses, I Don't Care, which just dropped on the 26th. And if you all haven't heard it or seen the video, check it out on your streaming service of choice and watch that video on YouTube because the boy did his homework cinematically, and I think he did a pretty good job of showing you what he was watching and getting into when he was making that video. So the man as a visual artist continues to surprise and excite me. So good stuff over there. Not only is he my BFF, but also one of the most talented dudes I know. So even though he's not on the podcast right now, go check out Grand Voodoo Band, wherever you do music stuff or even social media stuff. But yes, Tuck Mugs, Tuck_Mugs. Be there. Yeah.
And just to follow up on a thread that we were just tugging, in film roles where he has not played himself, there are 3 movies in which John Mellencamp has acted. The first is the 2001 film After Image, where he plays Joe McCormick. The second, also in 2001, a movie called Madison, where he plays the voice of someone called Adult Mike McCormick. And then he's in a movie called Lone Star State of Mind, where he plays Wayne. There's no last name listed,
Wayne.
but I'm assuming it's McCormick.
Good old Wayne McCormick.
All right. And that is our episode.
Buy Steven's book. Buy Steven's book, though. Send me my motherfucking book, Steven.
It's on its way, bastard.
Anyway, buy Steven's book.
Buy my book.
I'd like to say it's good, but I don't know.
It's called Check In, Check Out. Well, I mean, that's just because you wanted me to autograph it first, dude. I mean, I could have autographed it later, like next time we meet up, because you know it's going to happen around Christmas time anyway.
You probably won't. You probably, instead of sending it to me, you probably hand it to me at Christmas time, and I'll be like, why did I waste my time?
That sounds like something I would do. Anyway, it's called Check In, Check Out. It's available on ebook or physical media at Amazon.com. I'd say wherever you get your books, but it's just Amazon. And that has been our episode on Hancock. DeVaughn, once again, thank you so much for being here. It has been an absolute pleasure having you. And again, this is the first but not the last time you will be on this podcast, for sure.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Of course. And I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy. For my co-host, Tucker, the absent Brett Wright, and the great DeVaughn Taylor. Until next time, you want to go down? Because we're really great at down.